It's live from Austin, Texas. This is the Plutopia News Network happy hour, isn't it? Or is it? We're finally up and live. And
We're
I'm
sort
Sweet
of
Sweeney. That's John
alive.
Lebowski. That's Maggie Duval. And we're doing an incestuous live this time. It's just us, no guest. Well, Maggie's the guest, but she's our foreign correspondent in Taos, New Mexico. Hello, Maggie.
Hello.
Hello, John.
Hello. Hello. So we're all here. And Maggie recently moved from Austin to New Mexico.
Back home.
Yeah, from urban Austin to rural New Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking the other day that how many times in my life I've been in a major metropolitan area and then gone completely the other direction to a small town. Taos is not quite as small as Vallecitos, where I used to live about 18 years ago, way up in the southern lobe of the San Juan Mountains. And the only heat was 2 wood-burning stoves, and we had a wild horse herd and all sorts of things. So Taos seems a little bit more urban than before, but yeah.
Yeah, over the years of visiting Taos, I'd noticed the changes because when I went there as a kid, it was pretty small and not really touristy. It was just another place in New Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
But it quickly has changed to is it hip now? Is it hipsterish?
Well, one thing I was laughing about, I haven't been out a lot, just to pick up groceries or whatever, but I've almost had 2 near misses, almost running over a couple of hippies, young hippies. And one yesterday, she was wandering down the middle of the road with her pit bull off leash, and I just had to stop, kind of like when you stop to wait for the sheep to cross the road. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. Again, not being able to go out really to hang out at a, like a coffee house or anything like that. I've been curious too, because it's been 15 years since I've been in New Mexico. And before I lived in Santa Fe and in Byron's. This is the first time I've been in Taos. And I do notice that there are a lot of grayer-haired people like us here. There are, the young people as well. I was curious, you were talking about the growth scoop. I was here later than you, but I don't remember near as much development on the mesa. And I always wondered, how are they gonna, where's the water gonna come from? But hey, what do I know? But there's a lot more on the mesa. I saw an article in the Albuquerque Journal a couple of days ago, lamenting the fact that, there's a dearth of available housing here. And it's because I believe something like 60% of the housing is second and vacation homes. And most of those people refuse to rent them out when they're empty. So we've got, but this has been an issue in New Mexico for a while. Before I left for Texas, it was an issue in Santa Fe. There was only 60% full-time residency. So, it's kind of hard to have this kind of community vibe when people are using their places as vacation homes. So I'm just trying to ramp up on the politics now. Nobody can really find housing here. I was really lucky because, I think it helped that I've been a New Mexico resident before. And I also had a friend here, several friends who were able to kind of look for things for me. And so this was, I lucked out. But yeah, it's just, I'm trying to get a pulse. It's kind of hard to get a pulse on the community when it's in total lockdown because of COVID. I mean, not total lockdown, but, just not being out and about. But anyway.
Yeah, one
kind
of
of.
my friends in New Mexico was talking one time about uh, all the empty vacation homes and how there were waves of squatters that would show up and spot an empty vacation home and take it over. So that was a problem, I know, in the Santa Fe area for a while.
Mhm.
And, I don't know if that's has happened up there, but they had quite a few instances where people would come up for their vacation and there's some folks there. We,
That's right.
we're home. Oh,
Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I wonder how many people are, how many of those vacation homeowners are Texans? And I would imagine a lot. I was a little afraid when I got here. I mean, I still have my Texas plates on my car. I try to throw mud on them and stuff. Like I'm not one of those Texans. Anyway, because it's going to be a while until I can get my plates because I have to get the VIN number checked out and all that stuff, and you have to make these appointments and blah blah. But yeah, I just don't have a sense of what the kind of the makeup of the town is yet. Um, what the I'm trying to like catch up by reading the Taos news. You know, I do appreciate how opinionated so many people are in the paper here. Like,
Everybody's opinionated everywhere these days.
yeah, but it's kind of a I don't know. It's different than because it's so much smaller. There's not. You have the people that are on one side or the other, like the rest of the country, but there is still, it seems, some kind of overlap. you know, it's kind of the same arguments that people have had for years about like growth and who belongs here and who doesn't and blah, blah. I don't know. So,
It's the
yeah,
small
places
town
that
sense of opinionated.
places that have big tourist industry or a lot of tourism. There's always the ongoing clash between the townies and the foreigners, as they will refer to.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
very
that was,
interesting.
thanks for mentioning that because this was something I was thinking about this morning because I was like, what the hell am I going to babble about today? But, I lived in, one of the places I lived in too was Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, and that was the late 90s, early 2000s, which is a spa town. It's a small art town. And I worked a lot with the tourism board and with the Arts Council. And at the same time as that was going on, my mom was working as the secretary for the planning commission at the courthouse. So I got an interesting perspective on things. And what was happening there is that it's 2 hours from DC, Philly, Baltimore. So a lot of people in the business, retire up there, and everybody moves there because they like the quaint country small town lifestyle, but then they demand all of the services they had in the big city, right? And that always irritated the crap out of me forever, wherever I've lived. It's like, come on, and then everybody comes in and we have we have an idea of how you can run your little town better, right? And so I've never been one of those kind of people. I'm how I want to try to kind of connect in Taos is I just reached out to the Arts Council, and said, if there's some way I can help, I'm not telling you what to do. Let me know if I can help, because that's always worked for me before. The best way to connect in to a new place is through the arts. So
Yeah, that is the best way to get involved, is not come in and tell them, well, I'm sure I can make you much better than you already are. So that will be a turnoff right away. But just
yeah,
offering to help out, it's always worked for me too. It's like, I don't necessarily know how to make things better, but I can help.
yeah, yeah, and who knows what'll happen. I mean, and how having been a web designer developer since the dark ages, what, 95 is when I built my first site. I grew my web business, my little boutique web business in Berkeley Springs, and how I got the town business was, I connected in with our late force of nature, Jeannie Mosier, miss her dearly, and Mom said, you got to meet Jeannie, she knows everybody. So I met her, and I said, how can I help? And she said, you could design a rack card for the Apple Butter Festival. And I'm like, okay. So I did it. And then that got me in to do the website and everybody else's websites and so on and so forth. And it also got me involved in, doing little events. I mean, I helped with the Five Rings Media Festival there, and we did live streaming in 1998. Well, it was like Soren, what was it, Soren Broadcaster or something? Do you remember that software? And
you're not talking about real networks, real audio, real video.
It worked with
Real
it.
audio, yeah.
Yeah, it was like the encoder for that.
Yeah,
So it was,
I used that for my first online radio in big quotes. It was pretty basic.
yeah,
It kind of sounded like music.
yeah, the window's like this big. You're hand cranking it, and the gerbils in the cage.
Yeah, I would
powering
always distribute little magnifying glasses to the listeners.
But we did it, dagnabbit. Yeah, so yeah, that was fun, and it led to all sorts of great relationships and friendships, and got to know about, I worked on a project in that town for the site for the George Washington Heritage Trail and the Washington Papers in Berkeley Springs with Jeannie and all these great things. So I'm hoping, I've come up here to kind of quiet down a little bit, as I was complaining on Facebook last night, just to quiet out, and just see what's going to happen next. I don't know what's going to happen next. We'll see what develops.
Well, food was always my reason for going to Taos. I would have to go to Doc Martin's and have the chimichangas and a big giant bowl of margarita. And have you tried any of the food locally with as far as delivery or pickup? Anything good there?
Not yet, again, because the restaurants are, closed. But what's really cool is that I live just up the road from way back in the like 80s and 90s. When me and my mom and whoever we were traveling with, would come to Taos, we'd stop at this restaurant that was in this A-frame. It's the only A-frame in Taos on the main drag. And I remember the food there was amazing. Now it's some kind of like hybrid, like in Austin, how you have the donut and seafood places. This is like Mexican and barbecue. And I'm like, okay, well, this is not Northern New Mexican, I don't think, but haven't tried them yet. I always loved Orlando's here. But the last time, which is on the north end of town, but the last time I went, it didn't taste as good as it had before. But what I've been into is, my daughter lives down in Espanola, so she's 40 minutes from me down the canyon. And I recently discovered, we love the fact that everyone's terrified of Espanola. So, there's all these great things in Espanola that nobody knows about. So there's this center market, and there's a freezer there. They have great prices on food. They have great selection of stuff, but you wouldn't know it from the outside. Excuse me. They have a big freezer case of local roasted green chilies frozen.
Oh Lord, I'll put in my order right now.
Yes.
I'll send you a bunch of stamps to send it to me.
Yeah, so I loaded up on those, and I've been like everything green chili, green chili, green chili. And, I'm still in the mode of catching up on stuff, but I've got all my you know how we all tend to these days, you want to look up a recipe for template, you look it up online. Well, I've got all my old cookbooks. I've got some real gems of like traditional New Mexican cooking and all this stuff. So I'm going to make it a point to, just go on a kick and just make all this traditional Northern New Mexican. I'm a pretty excellent cook. So, I'm just hoping that soon I can share all this bounty with somebody. It's kind of quiet up here.
Well, be sure and pass along some of those good recipes because I'm running out because I have a lot. I do all the cooking here, and
Mm-hmm.
I've gone through all the cookbooks, and I even discovered we have the old Boston cookbook from like in the 1800s that
Oh, cool.
they put out. And it's kind of strange, but there's some interesting things. But I'm running short on inspiration, so if you find good stuff, you have my email.
Well, and I can also, feel free. I can also ship contraband, right? So, like, that's what I call whenever I go to, like, there's this great little store in Chimayo that has all these amazing dried chilies, and they got chili powders. And what they do is that, the up and coming chili, the hidden one, that a group in Espanol is trying to put on the map is Chimayo heirloom chili. And because a lot of hatch chili is grown in like China, hatch chili, just so we know.
Really?
Yeah, and they grow it in other places other than hatch. So I think there's maybe a certification issue, but Chimayo heirloom chili is amazing, and it limited stock. It's again heirloom, and it at that store Scoop. All right, it's got the map up. At that store, excuse me, they take their Chimayo chilies and sun dry them, and then they powderize them, and it's amazing. So I have I've gotten the green, the red, oh, they have an amazing what's it called? Oh, what's it called when you smoke the jalapenos? The chipotle. Thank you.
Yeah.
They they have a dried chipotle powder.
Oh, yeah.
Here, look, I'm drooling. I have to. Oh Lord.
Yeah, it's the secret ingredient, right? I just put a little bit of that powder in something, and even if it's not like Mexican food, it's incredible. So, yeah, and gosh, I can't wait till, like in the fall during harvest, when you drive around here and you smell the chilies roasting and some of the pinon smoke is starting to come out of the stuff, and the cedar smoke, not like our cedar and the Texas cedar from hell.
How far are you from Hatch?
Oh, I'm like, so Hatch is, let me remember how long it took to get down there. It was about, it's like a half-day drive from here.
So it's a ways, but
Yeah.
the chili thing kind of extends, right? I mean, it extends all the way to Austin. Yeah, that like what I was thinking about the Hatch Chili Festival though. Are you going to go to the Hatch Chili Festival if they ever have it again?
I would like to go one year. I also want to go to the Roswell Festival. Yeah, every time when I was coming back and forth between here and there, I would make it a point to go to Hatch and stop at one of the stands and just because I'd pick up the chilies, bag of chilies, the onions grown there, the garlic, the oregano, because it's all in that volcanic soil, so it just tastes different. So yeah,
Well,
and I look forward to if we're ever out of quarantine, going to the feast days at some of the pueblos because I'm right in the middle of all that.
Yeah, I understand those are really amazing.
Is Meow Wolf being affected by COVID? I mean, I know you're not in Santa Fe, but do you happen to know that it's still up and running?
Excuse me. I think they're not open, but I mean, they're about to open the Las Vegas, what is it, Omega Mart? I think that it looks amazing. And I follow Vince, one of the, the founder. And, his posts are pretty interesting because, he's one that's talking a lot about affordable housing in Santa Fe. If you want to have this industry, you got to have affordable housing. But he was posting that Brian Eno has composed like an ambient soundtrack with some other people, I guess, for one aspect of the Omega Mart installation.
Wow.
So I hate Las Vegas, but it might be a reason to go. And I think they're going to open their Denver one soon. So it seems, I thought they were going to be completely ruined, but I think they're just kind of on pause. They've been able to figure out a way around it. But I would love them to open again because Hunter hasn't been. I've been to it, but she hasn't.
So do you actually, so you're kind of outside of Taos, right?
I'm on the south end, right at the border with Ranchos de Taos. So I'm up on the side of some like lower foothill mountains, and I'm kind of equidistant. So one side of my house, there's the Mother Mountain, the Taos Mother Mountain, and on the other side is Picurus Peak. And on one direction of my house, like at sunset, or any time of day, but sunset, it's pretty dramatic. I can see the Jemez Mountains off in the distance where Espanol is right below. And then you can see the outline of Georgia O'Keeffe's Pedernal, her mountain she always painted. So it's kind of neat. I can see, again, I lucked out.
Are you staying indoors mostly like a lot of people are, or have you had much opportunity to like go into Taos and hang out?
Haven't hung out yet. Yeah, I just there's only one grocery here that does curbside. The other ones you have to go in. So I've gone in like quadruple mask to little Sid's, the health food store here, a couple of times, but so I just I just really haven't had time yet. But I did discover there's a used bookstore, which is dangerous, just about like half a mile from me. So I'm going to try that first. What's really great is that the merchants here, I have my post office box in a UPS store. Like they're adamant, 2 people in, that's it. Everybody's cool. Nobody's whining. Nobody's throwing a fit. So all the stores are like that. There's a gem store like right up the road I want to go to. I might actually risk, going just to, if I can go sit out on one of the decks in one of these places, there's some neat like microbreweries here and stuff like that, just to kind of people watch. I think I'd feel okay with that, mask to hell and then have a straw coming over the top or something.
Yeah, there's something called the, on the road kind of going into Taos. I think it's called the Taos Brewing Company. Are you familiar with those guys?
Yeah.
We hung out there last time we were in the area.
Yeah. And I also think that some of the museums are opening again. So that would be really great, because I've been to all the museums in Santa Fe, but I haven't been to any in Taos ever. Again, it was always kind of, oh yeah, we'll go up to Taos, but usually it was like staying oriented Santa Fe, Albuquerque more.
One thing we were going to ask you about is just kind of the changing from a very urban Austin environment to a pretty rural, near Taos environment. So what's that like?
For me, somebody like me, it's kind of blissful. I'm a hermit by nature anyway. And I was finding that, I lived in a really nice place in a nice area in Austin, but the energy's frenetic. It's just frenetic. And, I'm somebody who, like, I hated when I was a kid, I hated going to shopping malls. I hated malls. All the other kids loved it, but I hated it because it felt like too much energy and too much overwhelm. Maybe I have some kind of spectrum stuff, who knows, right? But it's just calmer. It's the pace is slower. I love that I live again in the land of mañana. It's kind of like, if we don't get to it today, we'll get to it tomorrow. It's no big deal, right? And it's really, really funny to see, you'll see some like beat up old truck or beater car. You see a lot more people here with like my car, the bumpers falling off, or, there's dents in the car, and everybody's kind of like just kind of going slow and hanging out. And then, you'll see the Audi or the Porsche or the Mercedes Benz, just like in Austin, where they're like, I demand to speed through and get out of my way, and this kind of thing. And so it's just kind of like, you'll see one of those and everybody's like, whatever. But yeah, it's just, I'm just struck by how quiet it is. The only real sounds I hear of civilization are me and my pets live just like half a mile from the hospital. So all I'll ever hear is maybe the Flight for Life helicopter coming and going. Before we were living under the flight path into Austin Bergstrom, and I didn't realize how loud that was. It's really great waking up in the morning. I'll get up really early and I open the door and I hear roosters, and sometimes I'll hear a burro braying, and just the sound of all these birds and the ravens and the crows and stuff. And it's just, I find I'm working more effectively. Like I want to go to work because I just don't feel like this, like overwhelm and all that. I just really appreciate the slower pace. Everybody's been really friendly. Really friendly. When I was here before, when I'd go into the stores in Santa Fe, most of the service workers were, rightfully so, pretty surly because, when you have to, it's sort of like they got the pre-COVID ass hattery handed to them all the time by the hoity-toity. When I lived here before, most of the people in Santa Fe seem to be wealth from LA or wealth from New York.
Oh yeah.
And they were and so I'm sure there's a lot of that there. Maybe it's because I'm here now and it's not the tourist season. Of course there's, COVID too, but I'm sure it's a lot more crazy when it's going to hit summer.
Yeah, it gets crazier in the tourist
Yeah.
season. That's when I've been there most recently, and especially down in the plaza where all the tchotchke shops are.
Yeah.
Get your sombreros, get your serapes, get your cowboy hat.
Yeah.
It was pretty strange there. It wasn't a down home mellow feeling. It was a lot of people from wherever.
Yeah.
on a quest to buy all they can find.
Yeah. I was, real crappy, a lot of crap. It's like, and yeah, I remember being here before, and again, that was 16 years ago, the last time I was in Taos during that season. And it was like bumper to bumper traffic, because there's just the 2 4-lane, some part of it's 4-lane, part of it's 2-lane through town, and it totally backs up, right? But even then I knew the back ways, so I can, I know how to scoot up to kind of bypass some of it, so that's good. But I don't plan to be driving a lot, and probably what I would do is, what's really great where I'm located is that I just hop on the thoroughfare, and like I'm on the road down the canyon. You know, I don't have to go through town, you know, none of that. Again, it's really quick route to go down to Espanola. So I'm really happy about that. Yeah, I plan to like this summer. There's a lot of real kind of hidden areas that I know about that aren't the ones you always read about to go to or whatever. And I'm planning to spend some time hiking in those areas. And you know, there's some places where there's ruins, Anasazi ruins, but you have to apply for a permit to go hike them because they're part of these old communities. And I like that there's some kind of control over it. And you're not going to have mountain bikers and four-wheelings through the wilderness and all that stuff. So yeah, there you go.
It looks like you got two routes you can take. One's a little longer.
Yeah,
so Ojo Caliente.
Yeah, so the gray one there, so that kind of straight part of it, that's the rim road that goes along the Rio Grande Gorge. Right up and there. When I lived here before, when you drop down, when I lived here before, that was not paved. And a lot of people wanted to keep it that way because you used to have to go way up to Tres Piedras, or, you know, which is way north, to come into Taos from like Ojo Caliente and all that. But it is much easier now. So yeah, I like that route. I took that route year before last, when I was here with I think we took that route with Teresa Domeno. But yeah,
Marcia and I took that route when we were there last, I believe.
Yeah, and there's also, you see where that little 111 is?
Yeah.
Above Ojo Caliente. So look north, if you go all the way up above Carson National Forest, where it says Vallecitos.
Let's see. Whoa. I could drag this thing. Okay.
Yeah. So Vallecitos is where we lived, where the horse herd was. Yeah, that was pretty amazing. And that 64 goes across to Chama.
Oh yeah, Chama.
Yeah. Have you ever been up taking that road when the sheep herders are up there?
I don't think so. I've been through Chama like many years ago. There was a guy that I know from my hometown, and I know Scoop knows who I'm talking about, Grady Wilbanks.
Oh, yes.
His family had a ranch in Chama, so they went up there all the time. Man. So I heard a lot about Chama without actually going there until I think I was an adult before I actually went to Chama. Gee, there's a lot of stuff up here, a lot of forest.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, here's another difference. How does it feel and how is it different? When I first moved to Texas, I went into shock because I was used to all of the BLM land and the reservation land. So I think that, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's something pretty high, like 75% of the state is like national forest, BLM, native land. And so I was used to when you could go camping, and you could go camping. When I got to Austin, I just remember joining some friends, I think it was like Pace Bend or one of those. And I was like, oh, I'm going to see what it's like camping outside of Austin, and then just being in this campground and looking across the river, and there's all these mansions.
Yeah.
And like everybody in the campground had like big screen televisions. And I'm like, wait, what?
That's not camping. That's glamping.
Glamping, yeah.
Yeah, it's like I went into shock. I was like, where's the land? I was like, oh, it's big ranches, and I'm like, oh, I wasn't used to that. I didn't.
Well, that's a great idea. I can take my big screen television camping.
That's right. Yeah, that kind of like freaked me out.
Hard to get on a backpack though.
It was kind of interesting. There's these people who live in their RVs. My brother is one of them, actually.
Okay.
And wherever they go, they can always find a campground where there'll be Wi-Fi and there'll be cable.
Yeah.
Or you can get a direct TV dish that you just take around with you, so you
Yeah.
can always get direct TV or some satellite television. You can always get pretty decent Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
was a guy here in Austin I can't remember the guy's name now, but his whole business was setting up Wi-Fi for campgrounds like
Interesting.
that.
Yeah.
So, pretty soon you're not going to be able to go anywhere that you're not going to see people who have access to some reasonable amount of bandwidth,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
streams and that sort of thing. And it's sort of like the thing about like, going out for a picnic or out to the lake or camping or whatever. And the guy who's near you has a boom box, or, a Bluetooth speaker or something, and it's just blaring.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when I went out with Jane and Jerry Clark and Cheryl Smith and Wendy and a couple other people. We went camping at Garner, which is so beautiful, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. But tubing on the river, it was fun until the Bubba with the boombox shows up and he's playing the shittiest music on the planet. It's like, please God, at least it's kind of like when I was at Burning Man in 2014 for the first time in 20 years. And I just wanted to kind of chew my own leg off because it was nonstop EDM from every angle. And I was just, make it stop. I felt like it was at the, like a Branch Davidian or something.
Yeah, that's the downside of technology is it's way too portable. Because I remember going camping as a Boy Scout. I was in the Boy Scouts for a long time, in Big Spring. We'd go to the Davis Mountains and spend a couple of weeks up in the Davis Mountains, and it was dead quiet. And there,
wow.
That was pre-transistor radio. Well, people had transistor radios, but no one brought one up to a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
And it was magnificent. But going up into that area now, you find the same thing. All the Bubbas have their TV and their RV going. And it lost a lot of the charm.
Yeah, I'm
really sensitive to the fact that it's so hard to go anywhere without noise, and I find myself wondering if I actually found a totally quiet place and could stay there for a couple of days, would my ears stop ringing?
Yeah.
Well, you can rent one of our rooms here, John, because this is Quietville here out in Bastrop County. Yeah, I agree with you, Maggie, about the lack of noise really having a great change in just how you want to live. When I moved here from the Bay Area, I was living in San Leandro in the Bay Area. And
oh my
it
God.
was between 580 and the 880 freeways.
Exactly. I know
you always
exactly.
had that cosmic hum of the traffic. Came here, and the only thing I could hear were squirrels mating up in the trees. I mean, that actually sounded loud. Like, damn, get a room, got there.
Yeah.
They already had it. They were in their room. But it changes the way you work too. I think you'll really enjoy it because I was working, for Kaiser Permanente IT, remotely, and I ended up just doing a ton of stuff just simply because it was so nice and there's no place else to go. There's not a big nightlife out here in the woods.
Yeah, it's just that phrase, I can hear myself think. It really feels that way. And I know that a lot of people, I posted about this too at one point of, that just being able to hear the snowfall when the snowflakes hit the ground, it's so quiet, and that I'm in the city. Oh, and the other thing, it's like, there's not millions of freaking street lights. It's like there's people out here, but there's not this terror. You know, I hate those freaking floodlights that come on. Where I was living in before, the neighbors there had floodlights all over their house. So, you know, anything would move and it'd come in your window. And
Oh yeah, the motion activated.
oh yeah, so like the other night, I was taking, you know, I live in like a triplex, so the house is split up in a really unique way. So there's this nice gal and her daughter that live above me, but I never hear them. Everything's super insulated. And then there's a other nice gal who lives in the converted garage. It's like a little casita, and she works for the Bureau of Land Management. And you know, you never hear anything, not lights on, not glaring or anything. But we share we do have trash pickup. You know, we don't have recycling, but there's trash pickup. And I went out the other night to take the trash out, and I just I just stopped in shock because I looked up and there's this field of stars, and I could see the Milky Way. And I haven't seen the Milky Way in a really long time. I think the last time was maybe out in, you know, Big Bend or something like that. But it was just like, oh my God, I'm in a town. It's not a huge town, but you see lights, right? But I can see the stars again, and it was just mind blowing. And so that and the quiet, you know, just it's just you know, I'm super grateful. I didn't realize, but I know a lot of people are really uncomfortable with that. It's like when you've always had you know, it's a soothing mechanism, right? Like folks who have all these TVs on in their house, like you go from room to room and they have TVs on, or there's noise all the time. I understand it. I just can't handle it. So whenever I'd go into a restaurant, I couldn't handle the TVs. You know, I try to get them to turn it off. It just really agitates me. So
The restaurants in Texas seem to have become more of sports bars, because I remember going to
yeah,
sports bars and
Yeah.
that was just irritating as hell. But you go into some of these, especially the chains that, you know, are trying to be everything for everyone, and
yeah.
they they became nothing to me, because that's the last thing I want to eat to is, so, you know, somebody's, you know, football game or basketball game, or some
Yeah.
of them will
Yeah.
have Fox
Again,
News on.
yeah, if it's a sports bar, great, go for it, you know. But sometimes, like, you want to go out for a nice romantic meal or something like that, and you want to talk to your partner. There's a
And
TV
and
on
it's got
the other side.
Fox News on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's got Tucker Carlson is on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
going to a sports bar is on my to-do list, right below learn conversational Latin.
Totally, totally. Yeah, it's just been you know, I'm sure other things are going to bubble up, but it's just been really interesting. You know, the approach to life that is a kind of a Texan way as opposed to a New Mexican way. It's just so, you know, of course I lived in one before, but I'd been soaking in it for a while, so I kind of forgot. And, you know, now I'm back here. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, it's just it is different. It's definitely different. And I mean, one thing I really have always appreciated about northern New Mexico is that it's another country. It's another reality. It's just not the United States. I mean, it is, but it's not.
Well,
And
there's a lot of reservation land there, which technically is not the United States
yeah,
exactly.
well, and also given that you know, the first European colony in the United States was established at Okewenge.
Oh
She's on
yeah.
the map. So that was 1598. So that was before Jamestown. That was before Plymouth. And we're not taught that in the schools, right? So, but there was this just constant injection from the Camino Real, the first Camino Real, because there's three. There's the first one was Mexico City to Okewenge, and then later it was Santa Fe, when Santa Fe became the capital. And then the second is the Texas Camino Real, the Mission Trail in Texas.
Yeah, it runs through Bastrop County.
Yeah, and then the third in the 18th century was the Mission Trail in California. So it's almost like a big tree with the taproot going into Mexico City. So from 1598 on, you just had this influx of this Central and South American energy coming in directly into the, the heart of the United States. And it just was, it was isolated for years because, the Santa Fe Trail wasn't allowed to, traders were not allowed to come in for years when it was Spain. They didn't want any infiltration from the British, the Americans and all that, or the French. So the only people that were coming in for years and years and years were fur trappers, right? So here in Taos, you'd have the Mountain Man rendezvous, and it was where the Mountain Man and the Comanche, the Apache, the Spanish would all intermingle. There was a lot of slave trading going on because, to kind of, in a way to keep the tribes from uniting to kick the Spanish out, they were encouraged to take slaves from other tribes and then they would sell them. So there's this whole group of Genizaros, or I don't pronounce it right, but there's a lot of DNA in this part of New Mexico that is from like probably every Native American tribe you could imagine. And it doesn't exist anywhere else. So it's cool stuff like that. That, it's like, wow, where am I? And, you've been to Santa Fe before. The streets are narrow, it feels European. Here. It doesn't feel American in a way.
No, I understand.
Yeah. And I appreciate that too.
One of the things I really liked about Santa Fe was that it really did feel like you were in kind of an old world environment.
Yeah. And, and I think that there's a lot of fighting to keep it that way, like some of the, because there's like, I think Vince posted something like 10,000 housing units are needed in Santa Fe, and there's only like 4,000 or something like that, available. And so you have the ongoing battle about keeping it Santa Fe style, not spreading out too much, so it'll be interesting to see what develops from that. I think a lot of people are agreed, don't want anything over four stories. I think the El Dorado Hotel is the tallest of the buildings downtown, if I remember. It's been a while. But yeah, if you, it'll be interesting to see because, as we know from Austin, is it losing its flavor? Is it losing its, personality or whatever that brought people here? The same thing is going on in Santa Fe.
Well, it's definitely losing its skyline. Just they just announced new gigantic high rises, and there's things good about that, I guess. But yeah, I just don't see the reason to be completely wiping out what was there and replacing it all with 90 stories of
I'm just kind of curious, what's gonna, between Tesla, between Oracle, between the Samsung, I was reading about the Samsung thing down there. Man, it feels like it's poised to just explode. And, what do y'all think about that? I'm going to be following it closely.
Well, the Tesla location, I drove by that recently when I was coming to visit John, and I looked at that and I couldn't take it in. It was huge. And that
really?
would just be a pasture land next to the 130 tollway.
Oh my God.
And it's just a mass of, it's like an anthill. There's just, literally thousands of workers out there, probably 500 pickup trucks all lined up, parked, from the crews that are working there. And they're just throwing up steel girders like crazy.
Wow.
There's a pretty strong consensus here that Austin is becoming a lot more like Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And that part of that involves people actually coming here from Silicon Valley. I mean, it's not like some people make it sound like everybody's leaving Silicon Valley to move to Austin, but Silicon Valley's still got its stuff
Hmm.
going, you know.
Yeah.
But some of it's moving here, and you know, Oracle is here now,
Yeah.
um, and Elon Musk is here,
Hmm.
and the Tesla plant, and there was already a lot of stuff percolating, as I'm sure you recall, you know,
Hmm.
Capital Factory and things like that. So I mean, Austin really is a different place. Nothing like, I mean, I've been thinking about this quite a bit lately about how the Austin that we knew, when I say we, I mean people like me who came here a long time ago. Like I
Yeah.
came in '69,
Yeah.
and the place that Austin was when I got here and was for some time after that, and for much of the time that I lived here, it's gone. You
Mm.
know, there's vestiges of it.
Hmm.
Um, there's like Giddy Up Bar, not far from here, is kind of like some of the old hippie hangouts that we used to go to. There's a few places like that around town, and some of the people are still here. Um, it's not like everybody just left, but a lot of them are getting really old, you know, and they're not
Hmm.
hanging out as much. So the scene here in Austin is a different scene,
Yeah.
and it's an accelerated scene. I mean, it's a very hip place. It always was in a lot of ways a very hip place, but it's become a more urbanized kind of hipness
Yeah.
than it was then. And in some sense, kind of there was a kind of magical vibe to the place. And I don't feel that anymore. I don't know that it's gone because it's like a place thing, you know. It's a
Yeah.
place that had a kind of magic to it, and you could feel it.
Yeah, I remember
I
that
haven't
from
felt it
coming
in a
down
long time.
from North Texas because that's what that was my vacation, just to come visit my friends in Austin back in the late '60s, early '70s, and it was definitely different then. I saw the same thing in this, you know, in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
When
Exactly.
I moved there in '73, I mean, it was a magical place. There was, you know, amazing stuff. I'd go to City Lights bookstore, and I could see Ferlinghetti there. You could talk to him,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
you could go to Fisherman's Wharf. It was actually fishermen, not
Yeah.
coffee shops.
Well, I mean,
And
this happens everywhere.
Berkeley was the same way. Berkeley was a radical, hip, you know, fun place to be, and
Oh yeah.
suddenly it became, you know, overwhelmed by the wealthy, the wealthy hip, and
Well,
people priced out.
I think I've been lucky to have lived in like between Denver and the Bay Area and here and Austin. I felt I was lucky enough to live with them in them at a time when it was the big city, but it had a small town. There was somehow
Yeah.
like there was a community. It felt like a community because being in the Bay Area, it seemed like what like why do I? There's a bazillion people here. Why do I keep running into the same people, whether I'm in San Francisco or over here? And it felt the same way in Austin, but in starting pre-COVID, it started feeling like it was spreading out. Like people were all still there, but it's like raisin bread baking, where the raisins are getting spread out from one another, and it doesn't have that.
Well, I think the economy caused that spread out to mean they're not so much centralized in
Yeah,
part of Austin. A lot of people can't afford to live there.
exactly. And it's the
You know,
same thing. I would say like the hip town in New Mexico is actually Albuquerque because everybody lives there because it's the only affordable place, and a lot of people like commute to Santa Fe and back or whatever. And I just know a lot of great artistic people that I've known from Bay Area and Austin are congregating in Albuquerque, and there's a really cool vibe. I love Albuquerque. Hunter at one time was thinking of moving there, and she might down the road because it's kind of, the art scene, film production is huge there. That's another thing about New Mexico is that, the film industry is like lots
over
of.
the last couple of decades, there's been a thing called new urbanism, a kind of movement, and it has to do with architecture and design and sort of trying to get greater density inside the city and more people moving into the city, whereas there used to be people were moving out to the suburbs.
Yeah.
And that's been happening in a lot of places that are, fair, larger cities. And they're all starting to feel a little bit similar, I think, because of it. I think that they've all been sort of picking up on some of the same ideas and movements and so forth. So there is a kind of similarity there. So that if you go to New York or you go to San Francisco or Los Angeles or Austin or whatever, they have their distinct flavor, but they also have more in common than they probably had, 40 years ago.
Yeah, it's there's a sameness to it. I mean, if I was a young person who had a really amazing job at a tech company, I would love living in any one of those urban. I could see that, right? But I'm me, somebody who's complained about sense of place when people don't have a sense of place. That's what bugs me. Just like it just loses its unique character and it becomes, homogenous or whatever. But I know we have to end up soon, but I wanted to give a shout out. There's going to be this concert online concert on Saturday, Food for Love, New Mexico, and a lot of our wonderful friends, Austin wise, are going to be playing it. We're going to have Alejandro Escobedo, The Chicks, Bale Allen, Ben Dickey, Bill and Michael Hearn. If you go to
foodforlove.org.
Yeah, Food for Love New Mexico, it's going to raise money for thank you. This is amazing.
I'll definitely tune into that.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I
there seems to be a lot of great socially conscious events like this happening. I see Judy Collins is doing stuff, recreating her first tour. That's coming up soon, and I always liked her work.
Oh, I'll look at
sorts of artists.
Allie McGraw and George R.R. Martin both on the same.
I know. You got Shiny Ribs and Sean Colvin and Steve Earle and Lloyd Maines and Terry Allen. I mean,
John Doe. Who lives in Austin now, and Bucka Allen. I know Bucka.
David Byrne.
I met him years ago.
Yeah. Donald Rubenstein. Yep.
Well, that should be a worthy cause.
Yeah. John Densmore. There you go.
Lots of Austin people.
Yeah. So I just wanted to. So I love that when I saw it today. I just saw it today, just as we were going to have this episode. So I thought, now that's a nice overlap and interweaving between the two.
I'm having a bit of an episode myself because I have to bring this up.
There you go.
Thank you, Maggie.
That was fun. Yeah, thanks.
Well, you're our foreign correspondent. You have to correspond some more.
Yeah, I'm starting to get my brain back, and I will. I'm looking forward to featuring stories from up here. So
yeah, find some guests up there, some people who can come join us.
I'll work on that. Yep.
All right. Well, again, thanks a lot. Off we go.
Thank you.